to die. And so he said to me, it's like, do you really have to kill him off like that? You know, so, you know, it's just kind of that we have those conversations. But it just hit me, and there never was a plan for that to happen. So, yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, this is a written question. Do you think it's hard to write children's books?
Ooh, you know that, I've never written any, so I can't really speak to that. I've had many of my readers, well, you know, it's like I'm aging myself. Early in my career, my readers would say, will you ever write something for my daughters? Now they're saying, will you ever write something for my granddaughters? So, you know, that kind of tells you, you know, how long I've been doing this. But I really can't speak to it because I've never done so. But I do know with children's books, you know, if you're talking about small children, then you need to have an illustrator for the books that you are writing.
Another written question. What would be the best advice that you would give to a first-time writer?
Ooh, the first thing is to make sure that writing is what you're supposed to be doing, that you really have a passion for it, and that it will have something to do with your purpose, and that it's something you fully enjoy, and that you would do it even if you weren't being paid a single dime to do it, that you would still love it and enjoy it. And most important is to write straight from your heart. Don't focus on the trends and what's popular right now or what another author is writing. Find your own voice and just go from there. Just be as genuine with your writing as you possibly can.
Another written question. Currently, how right now do you go about promoting your books?
So, you know, in this day of social media, I'm able to promote so much more. And I would say it's like, you know, on Facebook, how many of you found out about this event on social media, you know, in one way or another? And so back when, okay, we had only in-person events for the most part, in the late 90s and going into 2000, we had to do multi-city tours. And I remember when I started out with Kensington, I would do sometimes 25, 30 city tours each time a book was released. Now in today's time, a tour might be virtual. You might do a lot of live events with different organizations and reviewers and literary organizations. But social media and building up your email list of readers is more important than anything else.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Watson-Roby.
Hi.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Thank you so much for your books. You were the first Christian author I read in fiction. I read your book Behind Closed Doors, and when I finished, I gave it to my mother. And the day after I gave it to her, she told me she was angry with me because I made her stay up all night long.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So now I have quite a commute to work, and I'm listening to some of your books again to a point where it says, end of tape 1.
Oh.
They're pretty helpful. So thank you so much. Thank you for your talk today, and also thank you for your advice today.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. I appreciate it.
Do you follow the same specific steps when you're writing your books and continuing to get them published?
I do, in terms of reaching out to literary agents, I'm sure they're thinking, and so the only thing that has changed is the fact that once you have a publisher, for the most part, if your books have done well, when that contract is over, then usually your agent or publishing attorney will start negotiating the next contract. So the only difference is that you don't necessarily have to look for a new publisher. Each time that I left a publishing house, it was because my agent decided that they weren't offering me what they believed the books were worth. And so then you move on. And so both times that happened, she took the book out to multiple publishers, And then she held an auction where they all placed bids, and then I was able to make a decision on who to go with. So that's what changes as you continue on in your career. My second agent, I've had two agents. The second agent passed away in 2010, and I was already connected to a really good publishing attorney that she would sometimes give to review my contracts anyway. And since I was staying with the same publishing house, I never signed with another agent. I may do so in the future. I've kind of been thinking about it, but for the most part, he has been able to handle all of my negotiations and review all the agreements.
Hello.
Hello.
Karen Porter. I have been following you since I was pregnant with my son, because my husband, I had the flu, and my husband bought your book and said, save it for like when you're going to be up all night with this baby. So that was the first Curtis Black, the second one.
Yes.
And I've met you a couple of times, and I'm just amazed at your writing skills, and I've given your books as so many gifts. The one question I wanted to ask, I've always wondered this, is have any ministers or national ministers ever reached out to you and said, stop telling my business? Why are you doing me like this? I just didn't know if anyone, there's so many national ministers who could be that hard. So I just didn't know if anyone had ever reached out to you.
No, so I'm going to answer this in two parts. So the first part is, throughout all of these years, and I get that question all the time, I've never had a pastor confront me, but then I've always said, if you are like Curtis Black, are you going to really say anything to him? Probably not, and so I think that may be why. I have had pastors who are very decent men of God with great integrity, who love their wives, and they're really trying to be good men, support what I do. Dr. Frederick Casey Price, God rest his soul, who passed away. Dr. Betty became my spiritual mom. In 2004, we connected because I sent her a copy of the book, ironically, Too Much of a Good Thing, my second book in the Reverend Curtis Black series. And I sent it to her, and she called me right away after she finished it, and she said, we're on vacation. Dr. Price is reading it, and he does things. This is a good thing, to talk about what has been happening in the Christian community. And so then they started having me come out and speak to their women and their ministries. Wow. When Casting the First Stone came out, though, we were at an event in Baltimore, and I was at a library, at the Baltimore Library, and it was two sections, and it was one aisle, and the door was, the aisle was lined up with the double doors. And so I, just like tonight, finished speaking, did my reading, took questions. I said, are there any more questions? If not, we'll get started with the book signing. And there was a man standing in the back with a long black wool coat on. And I could see that he had a suit under it, and I knew with everything in me he was a pastor. And I thought, oh, here it is. I'm in a lot of trouble, and it made me nervous. And I kind of, it's like I looked at my husband and looked at, I'm just trying to look everywhere but at him. And so he took a couple steps forward when I said, are there any more questions? And to my surprise, he said, I wanted to come here tonight. I'm a pastor here in the area, and someone told me about your book. I read it, and I want you to know that I had my secretary buy copies and send it to all my pastor friends. And he said, this should be required reading for young men in seminary. And he said, I feel that way because I believe they need to see what happens if you say you have been called by God to preach and then you do something way different. These are going to be the consequences. So that's been my experience. Thankfully, no one has ever, confronted me. Here's the funny thing, and I do have to share this. A woman in North Carolina once emailed me and said, I normally wouldn't tell an author when someone has really criticized their work. She said, but I think you'll appreciate this when you finish reading it. And she said, she was at church on that Sunday morning, and the pastor had gotten up and said that he had heard about this book. And this woman was writing these scandalous things, about a pastor in a book called Casting the First Stone, and that he did not want any of his members of his congregation, consorting with that, reading that, being involved with any of it. And so she said, the reason I am writing you today is to tell you that people rushed out to this. So that became a time, and I don't know if any of you who are the library directors and your staff members with the library, but I started hearing from readers telling me, I'm number 50 on the list for your Reverend Curtis Black book. And it's like, oh my God. So yeah.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us here in the Hampton Roads area. My name is Sheila.
Good evening.
Good evening. I started reading your books as well when I was carrying my lap. And I was wondering, at that time, the characters, really resonated with me. We were in the same age group. But as we age, do you see yourself continuing to have your characters age in your books as well?
I think that they really have, because Curtis certainly has. He has, he started out, he was in his middle 30s, and, now he's pushing 50s and, 60 years old because he has adult children. So, yeah, I definitely believe that. With Sister Friends Forever, a little bit younger than me. I turned 58 this year, so they're only 40 years old, but at 40, you kind of live a similar life to, 50. But for me, now at this age, I know all the ages, for the most part, so I can kind of write about them. Yes.
Hi. Sorry. My name's Lexi, but I just want to say thank you first off, because this is my mother right here.
Oh.
But back when I grew up, I was a nerd, still am, but I would much rather read than watch TV, and so I read all the books. I could read at that age and then started sneaking in her room and reading her books. And so that's how I discovered you.
Oh,
and
that's so
so
wonderful
when I
to
tell you, you
hear.
have built my reading, like you were the first book series.
Oh,
that I read.
wow.
So now I'm almost 30 now, and so my son, he is 7 years old, and he's really getting into reading. And so it's just beautiful just to see, like, how much you have influenced just everything. Like, I love to read. Like, I'm on my Kindle nonstop. And then, like, paperback inks, I deliver mail. And so I actually remember when they opened, and I used to, first question I asked them when I did the route, I said, do you have any Kimberly Lawson Roby books? And so I just want to say thank you just for showing up.
you.
I showed up at the Hampton Library the other day. I saw your picture. I was like, oh my gosh. I texted my mom, I was like, we have to go. So I just want to say that comment. And then my question, do you think you'll ever reach out? I know Reverend Curtis is in it. Do you think you'll ever reach back out for Alicia's story or
Cortina.
Ooh, yes.
Right, I was wondering because the way you spend off into the all his kids, like and his son too. Like, you ever think about reaching out?
I've thought about it, and so at one point I was almost saying, maybe I'll do the 16th title. Some of you, if you follow me on social media, I just posted, that I'm thinking about it. This marked 5 years since I ended the series, and 3,000 people clicked on the post, and I thought, oh my gosh. There were like maybe 1,800 comments, and so I thought, I'm not, so at first I was close, but I literally need to make sure that it's the right thing for me to do, so I'm just kind of debating it, and if I'm supposed to move forward with it. But it definitely, Cortina would be a big part of it if I did, absolutely.
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Valerie Fashion. I'm a retired librarian for the military.
Yep.
And I want you to know we bought all of your books, and your Casting the First Stone was the book, but I got readers that come in that didn't know what they wanted to read. I recommended Casting the First Stone.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.